Welcome to the Pink Lady Posse podcast, Women Who Refuse to Disappear. You are either creating your life or living one you inherited. Friction management. It matters because breakthrough is your way out of drift. See the drag? Return to say. Let's go. Hello, everyone. I am Sandy Parker Martinez with the Pink Lady Posse podcast, the podcast for women who refuse to disappear. I'm with someone I love and respect, Miss Sydney E. Valentine. Welcome, Miss Sydney Eve.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
So I want to make sure I introduce you as the queen you are. So you are a graphic designer and instructional designer, ID Harvard, creative designer, and you manage a studio called Valentine Design Studio. And you're a business coach certified and a million other things.
Exactly. That's why I have so many hats. My head's a little flat on the top from all those hats. I'm sure that your people know the feeling well.
Yeah, yesterday I was speaking in a summit, and the one thing that registered with everybody is capacity friction.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Are we not like juggling so many plates that we're all like going crazy? And somebody goes, "Where's the friction?" I'm like, it's all over the place, shall we say. So
That's scary when it stops being visible to us. Because it's just everywhere, ubiquitous.
That's the point of friction. If you don't see it, you don't have access to it. And we run around like chickens with our head cut off, not knowing why we feel like things are harder than they used to be.
We need you to help us see differently.
Well, I want to say I tripped over Miss Sydney Eve Design on Facebook with designs that looked like candy in a candy store. And I know you know the emotional impact of color. But when I look at your designs, they literally look like refreshment. Tell me about those little squares that I see, and each one is like a jewel and a jewel and a. Tell me about that.
The psychology of color is such an interesting topic to us all, because it's not just our lipstick and clothing, but it's our homes and the color of our businesses, maybe the color of our vehicles. And we all just instinctively know that it has an impact on our mood. Would you agree?
Well, while I was sitting here waiting, I was lulling through your design going, it just makes me feel in touch with myself.
Awesome. Well, as a designer, that's what you want,
Well, you have that collection like the mermaid collection.
I do.
Those beautiful purples and blues.
Jewel tones are very, very, very popular. And so are tones that are iridescent. And sometimes jewels are iridescent. So you get the double whammy. But I found that any effect, a color effect that sort of has movement right in it, it shimmers, or it just seems to sort of has that holographic kind of changes colors depending on the angle or the light in the room, really draws us in. The research suggests that that is so. And so those kinds of color palettes, jewels and anything that's kind of mermaid or iridescent, will definitely draw people in and keep our attention. And they're just kind of joyful.
Well, we're going to go on to the world of feminism in a minute. But I just want to say, in this crazy world of AI, where there's starting to be a look that seems like I recognize it, but I don't know how. I think that looks like something else I've seen and seen and seen and seen. I think unique design is going to be like a gold star in your branding.
And I agree. And I would add also that AI does beautiful work, and it is democratizing design for us. No longer are we beholden to hiring, an illustrator or graphic designer necessarily. But I think that saying garbage in, garbage out, that's
Yeah.
a bit harsh, but I think we all have to get a little more in tune with what we want from the AI. And so we can give it some really good parameters and guidance and, learn how to make it give us things that look beautiful and like us, unique.
Well, the other thing is I'm just, what do they say, just enough dangerous with that graphic design. I can make it look awful from the most beautiful image. So it's also layout, your words, the way it's placed. And so I think while we don't have to go hire a designer, we should because we can go crazy with it.
Well, if I was getting married, I probably would try to design my wedding myself. And meanwhile, there are wedding planners out there who would do such a fabulous job and take so much of the pressure off me and still listen to my amateur direction and this and that. So it is great if we can work with someone. It saves us a lot of time and it doesn't mean that we lose ourselves. But we can also move quickly by just showing these AI tools some examples of things that we like because these are smart tools and they really do learn from samples that
Mm.
we have saved on our phones and screens, snapshots and of color palettes or looks like aesthetics that we like. So I don't think that everybody wants to become a designer. And I don't think everybody wants to outsource everything. So maybe there's a sweet spot in there somewhere where we can, just share our research when we're online. If we see something we like, we save it and then share it with the tools. And I think there's
Yeah.
a middle ground there.
Well, I sure hope so because, as you know, you are my design consultant, and I'm in the process of publishing a book. And I have in my heart the confidence that while I see something I like, I can show it to you and we'll be corrected if I'm a little out of the line of what I'm hoping. And that is a huge comfort, Sydney Eve.
I think so too. I think it's a luxury to work with other humans these days. We all spend so much time at our screens and maybe with, technology and working one-on-one or in a small group with other humans. It's just really, really great. It works on so many levels, from a coaching perspective to a, technical perspective and subject matter expertise spec perspective. Just,
And sharing tips like,
so
you
much.
know, secret tips.
Secret tips are great. Shortcuts are great.
Yeah.
Learning feels good. It's just that we don't always have enough time to learn something, in depth ourselves. And that's why just hooking up with other people who have done a deep dive into it is just so valuable.
Now, what is curious to me is you look like a most professional, beautiful, sweet, almost soft spirited person. And then I find out that your degree is in a PhD in feminism therapy. Tell me about it. What the heck is that?
Well, it means that for one thing, I don't think they would call it like woman studies anymore. I think they would call it gender studies now. But like I'm an old goat, and back in the day, you know, it was woman studies, and that's what I majored in when I went to get my PhD because it was just something different, and I've always found, working with women so pleasurable and so interesting, and there seemed like there was so much work to do. And
Well, now
so, yeah.
we were jokingly saying that means I should burn my bra, right? Because
Well,
I'm
I
old
do.
enough.
I mean, I can, I should be teaching courses on burning bras. Just kidding. No, but I think that's a joke that only somebody who's our age would even know, because I don't know if they call feminists bra burners anymore. But anyway, insider joke.
So, what does it mean to you? And I guess I should ask, would you say you're a feminist?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not the most political person in the world, but I'm very, very interested in inclusive design. I'm very, very interested in including people and making them feel like they belong. I'm interested in making things accessible design. And so, and I'm also very interested in technology. And so, digital technology specifically. And so that was where I found my little corner in the whole world of women's studies and feminist theory, because there was just a lot of talk about how do we make the world a place where women feel like they can make a real contribution and they really belong. And we can have more diverse curriculums and more diverse companies and more diverse culture. There was a lot of work to do back in the day.
Mhm.
And I think we've come so far, and there's probably just as much work to do now to become even more diverse and inclusive and everything.
I did a summit yesterday, and I'm used to speaking to women, and it was like more men than women. So I
Interesting.
found myself sort of challenged on how to include them because I'm used to speaking to women. And so it's kind of the opposite effect of how do we just have everyone in mind when we're communicating?
And then how do you also work with that objective when you hear coaches, especially sales coaches, say, in business, if you're trying to talk to everyone, you'll talk to no one. That kind of rings in my ears, and I think, how do those 2 points reconcile, you know? And is this an impossibility? So I should just throw my hands up and say, silly, I can't do that. I'm just going to carry on and feel cynical and defeated about it. So it's definitely hard work. Like when I say there's work to do, I
Hmm.
think it's hard work to do. But when I also think of some of the traditions in my family and probably in everyone's family, we all know these women and some men who are just n natural at hospitality. They're really good at making people feel welcome. Really good at making people feel like they're in the right place and they belong and they're wanted and they're welcome. And so somewhere there is, I think, a place to start, to have a creative approach to welcoming people into business spaces, life spaces, digital spaces. Start somewhere.
You know, I'll throw this in because my husband's a pastor. And we're always doing these studies about what are the different gifts. And so he actually has the gift of vision. I actually have the gift of shepherding.
Hmm.
What that means to me is, what that means to me is, I want to see where everybody is. And I want to make sure everybody is being thought of. And if someone's missing, I want to know where they are, right? I want to herd us all together. I guess I'm a grown up border collie.
Love it.
And I'm like, come on, everybody, let's herd us all together. And so that makes for a good combination because he's a teacher and I'm a shepherd. And so I really love that whole idea of inviting people in. And I guess color is because you said, how do we rectify the juxtaposition? There's a sentence. And
Yep.
is color part of that?
Most definitely it is. And I have found that one of the quickest ways to invite people to participate in our businesses or our lives or our celebrations specifically is to have things in different color palettes and invite feedback, invite response,
Mm.
because everyone um, has an emotional response to different hues and palettes and spaces. And so even if we might not think we have the language to talk about color, it definitely brings people into a conversation to say, these institutional gray walls, are, I think it would look so different in here if we gave this room a paint job. I'm not sure what color. You'll find that people will immediately say, yeah, like I would probably just make it white, or, I would put neon colors in here or something. People will talk. Color is just like a door that opens for conversations. Everybody
Well,
has
it's
different.
interesting because, Pink Lady Posse has the color pink. And I remember telling a woman, oh, I'm a red. I'm a red.
Quick question. Have you noticed how easy it is to drift through this season of life? Not unhappy, just slightly checked out. Yeah, that. At Think Pink, we don't fix women. We help them come alive again. Honest conversation. Easy occasions for discovery. No duct taping a smile over burnout. No reinvent your entire life by Tuesday. Just people who care and gentle nudges that help you feel like yourself again. I mean, the truth is, you can't be your best self by yourself. If that sentence made something in you nod, we made a free Think Pink starter gift just for you. Come take a look. No fixing, just connection. Go to pinkladyposse.com and click on Think Pink. Stay awake to your own life and not alone.
And I remember telling a woman, oh, I'm a red. I'm a red. And she goes, well, what about red plus enlightenment? And she goes, well, what about red plus enlightenment? And I love pink so much better in 1 minute than I did a minute, because some people think pink is too girly, it's too overused, it's too feminine identification tool
Yep,
or gimmick. But
exactly.
pink is also a profound color and it does really communicate.
Pure joy.
I love that. Now, tell me about what matters to you related to people being creatively confident.
That's my driving force in life and business. I'm a teacher by training and a graphic designer, and I really love to help people feel more creatively confident. And whether that means that they're learning to communicate their feelings and their thoughts and their preferences and their ambitions, or whether it's that they can use a tool, whether it's a paintbrush or a mouse, whether it's that they can, get together with other people and work as a team to put on an event. I think creative confidence is so important for wellness. And that's what I spend my time doing, whether I'm coaching or whether I'm teaching, lecturing in the classroom, or whether I'm, creating templates that, further enable people to be creative on Canva.
So, what do you find over time has been leading blocks to creativity? Like, do you see common things that are out there why people don't feel confident creatively?
I think people hear no a lot at work, too much. And when someone hears no, or their ideas are just not well received,
Mhm.
then we have a particular kind of organizational culture. And even if it's a small business, there's three employees, one employee, and then the founder. If your ideas are not well received, considered, you know, that can really zap your confidence. And people get quieter and quieter. So you find that they will, redirect their creative output to the kitchen or their grandkids or planning a vacation. There's so many ways to be creative. But I think creative confidence does get zapped by organizational cultures, which are just not open to thinking differently about how we do business, whether it's a church or your family. We need to be open to thinking differently.
Well, and I think, I love to be a yes. I try to be a yes before I'm a no. And yesterday I talked to Forbes Riley. She's a pitch consultant, and they had me up on the stage saying what I did. And then she was correcting me and helping me say
Okay.
it better. And oh,
You're
it was
brave.
scary. I know. But the thing is, she said one thing that really made me alter the way I am presenting what I'm doing. And I really think color and design is that way. Like the words we use, the colors we use are so important. And I bet 90% of the Pink Lady Posse and the Wise Women Collective, we're all entrepreneurs. We're all trying to forward something that matters to us. So I think taking a keen eye on design and being able to be guided is so important. I'm working on my book. I had to tell you, you were right about the pearls. So the book is Peace is More Expensive Than Lobster, a wake up call with lipstick. And I've got a lobster on the cover. And then I had scattered pearls. And Sydney goes, we have two kinds of seafood working. We have a lobster and we have pearls. I'm like,
Oyster.
pearls go everywhere. And you're like, well, there, and literally, I would not have caught that. But when I asked, people did say, I wonder why you had pearls on there. You don't seem like the crotchety lady wearing pearls. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have totally missed it. So that kind of, what would you say, undercurrent of misalignment does throw things off when you're not even aware of it.
And that is why it's so valuable to have creative collaboration in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Invite somebody into the kitchen to taste things and give you some feedback,
Yeah.
put on your outfit that you're going to wear to that event and, um, you know, maybe take a picture and share it with me, or something, so we can just work together and get some feedback. But it's hard to find honest feedback on our creative work because people are so afraid to offend. And so my secret trick for getting real feedback is always to say, I have two versions I'm going to show you. I have two dresses I'm going to wear. I have two ideas for this menu. I have two different looks for this room, or, two different colors I'm considering. Because then it's really clear to whoever you're asking for feedback that you haven't already made your decision, and their feedback is really truly valued and may actually make an impact on the final outcome. So show me one thing and I might think it's your masterpiece, and so I'll just say that's lovely. Show me two things that are different a little bit, and then I'm going to be able to feel comfortable to lean in and tell you the truth.
That is brilliant. And the other thing you said the other day was, how many people do you ask? Like 100 doesn't help.
5. The user experience research indicates that after we ask 5 people for opinions, feedback, to weigh in on a question, we will start to see that pattern repeat. So we don't need to ask 50 people. We can, but if we think back, we're probably seeing the the outcome from the first five repeated over and over again. So that's why the user experience design researchers say you really don't need to test with your ideas with more than five users.
What a time saver when we're doing polls and we're asking 500 people to give their opinion about something. I should go back and look at the first five.
Well, it just also it takes the boundary toward getting feedback on our work in progress. It lowers that boundary a little bit because if we think, well, I really only have to ask five people, and I might uncover some really, some gold nuggets of insight, some really valuable points that will change the direction of what I'm building here, whatever it is that I'm building.
Well, I was surprised to find that. And in keeping with this lovely book I'm giving birth to, um, a lot of people said, well, it's awful busy. It's awfully busy. And I'm like, well, maybe I should trim it back down to minimalism. But I think you might say no.
Well, the debate between minimalist aesthetics in our homes and in our businesses and in our dress and maximalism has been going on for as long as design has been going on. But it differs between cultures. If we think about folk cultures, we think about indigenous cultures, they are they have a different visual economy, and bright patterns and bold and vivid colors have always been used to communicate, visual communication system. But there is a certain wisdom out there in design circles that suggests that when brands mature, they will become more minimalist and lots of white space and light colors and gleaming surfaces and high ceilings and that kind of openness and lightness. So, but the research suggests that that is one way to design, but users will not immediately dismiss busy, bright patterns and configurations as amateur or as too loud or as silly, unrefined, bargain basement. Not at all. The research
Well, I
suggests
can
that
tell
they'll
you that I just paid $150 for a purse from Betsy Johnson that looks like
perfect
a ship.
example. Perfect.
And my cover, if it looked like Betsy Johnson, I would be happy. And there's a
Right.
word called seenager. I'm a senior on the verge of teenager. And I'm going to say I'm a seenager. And it's bossy and bright and loud and fun. And if people don't like it, it's okay. There'll
But they
be a
do.
minimalist book right next door, I'm sure.
There's a lot more minimalism out there than there is maximalism. And I would strongly encourage all of us, whenever we find that we're playing it safe with our creative endeavors, whatever those are, to just reflect and say, people judge a book by its cover. When they get inside my world, am I that sort of very plain, very plain approach, very minimalist approach? Or have I got a lot of personality? Am I really into celebration? Is there a lot of joy? Do I like fun? What's the personality of me and my world? And if that's the case, if you are fun and you're filled with personality, then we should put it on the cover because then people will know what to expect.
What do you think?
Exactly. And we read cues so quickly. So many of us would say that we're visual learners. And we just, you were talking about being able to read the room before and see who's missing, who's here, who's engaged, who's not who's under engaged or disengaged. And that emotional intelligence, it also really factors into how, we read all the visual cues. They call it semiotics, all the signs around us. It happens in a microsecond. We make those judgments. Very powerful stuff. So,
I'm going to switch to a spiritual book for just 1 second, but Richard Rohr wrote a book called Everything Belongs. And in my soul, when I saw the title of the book, I thought, yeah, that's the way I live. So why would I strip out all the extravagant to have a plain old book? It just can't be.
and sometimes plain, quiet, very sophisticated, very minimalist is exactly the right emotional climate for what we're doing. And it takes a lot of effort, a lot of thinking, a lot of, creative confidence to go minimalist. But then there's other times when we want to experiment with something that's a little bit more bold, a little bit more vibrant and vivid. So I think everybody has our minimalist moments and we have our maximalist moments, right? Depending.
Mhm. Well, I love you for guiding me in my design projects, and you should tell people what your design sprints are. Is it design sprint?
It is. We know we work together online for 1 week on your graphics, your presentation of your business. If you are small business owner, solopreneur, entrepreneur, or if you do some of the design inside of a bigger corporation. So you're an intrapreneur, you do innovation from within. The look and feel of the products and the brand, that's what we work on in the design sprints. So we have all this energy for looking at what you've got already and listening to where you want it to go. And then we have some tools to help you get there so that by Friday, things look like they've had a bit of a glow up. Things look a little bit more current, maybe more seasonal. And it's incredibly satisfying because whatever we work on is great, but what you really are buying is just a little bit of a boost to your creative confidence.
Yeah, well, I say every time I'm in the room with Sydney Eve, I feel at peace. Now, and I might be working on the craziest design ever, but I know that I'm accepted, that my skill level is tolerated, that I'm being guided by someone that's extraordinary, and I'm surrounded by people that I enjoy being with. So it's like a collaborative environment that really supports saying out loud what you really want to accomplish. And I think that is just incredible. It's been an incredible gift to me, Sydney Eve.
Well, that is so good for me to hear, and I appreciate it, and I receive that feedback. I'm going to remember that phrase. I have everyone, everything belongs.
Isn't that sweet? I love that. Okay, so here we are wrapping up, and you get one big shot to deliver the Sydney Eve listen up, sister. This is what I would say. You can even take a minute to just look at your
No, I
world.
would say give yourself permission to infuse more of your personality in your business, in your cooking, in your design of your home, in the way you dress. Give yourself permission to infuse more of your personality in the design of your life.
How sweet is that? Thank you for being with me today.
My pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to Pink Lady Posse Podcast, where women go from what now to what's next. Come join us at pinkladyposse.com, where we share community, resources, and tools to support your next beautiful chapter. With love, light, and a little lipstick. See you next time.